Check out this video on the House of Machismo podcast. It's House of Machismo.
Well, I think with the original Dawn of the Dead, it was a formula for a film that hadn't been really extrapolated on, and because it was, you have no idea where this story can go. It's not by the numbers. Most movies you can figure out the ending, but Dawn of the Dead has a sad ending. Everybody dies, and depending on what cut you watch, who gets out.
The version that I remember is that they're going to take off in a helicopter, and then that one guy is like, no, save yourself. I'll stay here and defend and hold these zombies back. Oh, yeah. But then he suddenly changes his mind. He's like, fuck this. Let me go ahead and save myself as well. And so he manages to, to ride off into the sunset. Right. Sort of, And then I think that led into, Dawn of the Dead. What's the next one coming out?
Day of the Dead.
Day of the Dead.
Well, they each have their own little things that kind of, the sequel always picks up like, well, what if this happened? But it was almost related to what they were talking about in the previous one, but I think that the George Romero zombie movies are some of the best things ever. I don't even care what people say about the last few. I love them all.
I watched them all.
Yeah, I have them all.
I used to have them all, but then I realized I wasn't watching them, or they're not even streaming. As far as, well, you know what? I used to have Shudder. I don't have it anymore. But, or I don't even know if they're still streaming on there, but what I do remember is that once the zombie kick started coming around, like in the early 2000s or so, then that's when he started making more of those films. And
he did Land of the Dead, which was supposed to be the last one, but then he did 2 prequels to Land of the Dead, which was Diary and Survival.
Diary was one of my favorite ones.
Yeah,
but only fun. I just kind of like the. I'm not a huge fan of the shaky camera footage and whatever.
The found footage.
Yeah, the found footage. But I think that I gave him a pass because they were film students. Yeah. And so they should know how to hold the damn camera.
Well, from my understanding, film school doesn't teach you the business. It teaches you how to compose a shot. And
exactly.
How many you spend a whole semester on that. And
exactly.
You should have figured it out in a day or two.
Exactly. Turn the camera on, focus it, and then, shoot with it. You know? And so I did enjoy that. Those were movies with the budget. The ones that I didn't. If I had to rank it, it's the one. What is it? Island of the Dead or something like that.
Survival of the Dead.
Well, it might have been Survival of the Dead. It's the one that takes place. Like if you, and I'm sure you'll probably remember this, is that there was a zombie that was actually riding a horse. Do you remember that scene or that character? I don't know.
In a Romero movie?
Yeah, it was in a Romero movie, or it might have. It was in a Romero movie. I remember that.
The Survival of the Dead is the one I'm least familiar with, so it might have been that.
It might have been that one. But
that's
the
one with the Amish.
And that's the one where I'm kind of like, okay. That was more of the weaker ones. Still watched it, still enjoyed it, but, for me, it was one of the weaker ones. First of all, I remember hearing when he first passed. I was on a road trip with someone. Yeah. And I'm literally, like, looking at my phone, we're on the road, and I go, oh. My friend said, what? It's like George Romero passed. Yeah. He's like, oh, he was always really good. I don't know. I always like watching interviews with him, like all the interviews and stuff that he did. And I recently listened to Night of the Living Dead. And not because it was a script and a movie first, but then they transcribed it. They created a novel out of it. Yeah. And that's cool. It describes it a little different than the movie itself. So the scene where they're driving into the cemetery, is in the movie's during the day, right? But in the book, it takes place at night. Oh, and so I'm not quite sure if I'm assuming that the script came first, and what I liked about the book, and it's on audio too, so I like listening to that too, is that you get inside the heads of the characters.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and so at least this way you know what Barbara's thinking or what the other characters are thinking. Okay. In their behavior and their, just basically it creates a an atmosphere that the movie unfortunately couldn't do, or movies, not that particular movie, but movies unfortunately can't get you inside the character's head without it being some sort of inner monologue or something, you know. And so, or even just being that third eye, you know, watching everything, you know, and describing the situation besides the camera. Now, what I also remember is that they did a Return of the Living Dead book.
Okay.
And so that came first before the Return of the Living Dead movie.
Okay.
And so, the Return of the Living Dead book basically takes place like 10, 15 years later. Mm-hmm. And but
it's connected to Night of the Living Dead as if...
Yeah. It had stopped. The zombie stuff had stopped. But then they started noticing that slowly it's coming back, but the government and law enforcement isn't really mentioning it because they're trying to erase the events that happened. But you have these other characters that are like your zombie hunters in a way.
Right.
And they're trying to, basically they're realizing it's starting again. They can't explain it, but it's starting again. And that they need to take care of, you know, when they die in accidents or whatever, they have to chop their heads off or whatever. They just need to eviscerate the body.
Right.
And so, you know, law enforcement is going after them, you know, saying that, hey, you can't do this to a body, you know. But basically, this is what I learned about Return of the Living Dead, is that the book came first before the movies. The movies basically bought the rights and the title, but completely changed it.
It's well, what it is the guy who produced Night of the Living Dead with Romero went off and he made his own franchise, and that's what Return of the Living Dead ended up being. So it is, in a way, connected. It's a spin-off franchise that's just really corny. But I love it. And then, you know, the zombie movies are a spin-off from Romero's Dawn of the Dead. And so, it's, you know, two parallel sequel universes. And I think it's pretty cool.
I think, because I've seen Return of the Living Dead, Return of the Living Dead 2.
I think even The Walking 3. Dead ties into it now, right?
Does it?
I don't know.
I started picking up with The Walking Dead again. I kind of lost interest for a while.
It's, I don't know, 23 seasons. I don't
It
depends on how many spinoffs you're talking about.
Yeah, and so the spinoffs to me are they're good because it's like starting all over with a new story, you know, and so, but it takes place like in a world, you know,
but they keep saying it's the final episode of all time. There's no more episodes, and then boom, there's a spinoff with Daryl Dixon and some other people that were in the last show. What
I like about the Daryl Dixon one is that they have these zombies where if you touch them, they burn like acid or whatever. You know, like if they grab you and they start burning your skin or whatever. But then also they inject them with like this kind of chemical or stuff to make them super aggressive or whatever, and they start attacking like other zombies and people and all that stuff. But that's that world. But you know, with Return of the Living Dead, what I did enjoy, again, I watched this stuff as a kid and it just scared the shit out of me, but I loved it, you know. But, you know, to ask me to go do something in the dark or at night or whatever, I'm like, I'm not doing that. Again, I was a little kid like this. I think that the concepts were good. The stories were good, but, you know, it was just 80s. It was very 80s and very, you know.
Well, I mean, the craftsmanship behind Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead are insanely amazing. I mean, Night of the Living Dead was a weekend warrior shoot with a bunch of all the financiers, just rotating roles, and but the effort that they went through to make that movie happen is insane. I love the documentary, everything I find on Night of the Living Dead. I mean, I put that movie on just to have on and listen to now as an adult.
In the background.
But I mean,
they're coming to get you, Barbara.
My kid even does too. But I mean, the other ones. I mean, by the time you get to the third one, Day of the Dead. I mean, that's the '80s one. That's the one that came out in the '80s, and I think that has a better score than Dawn of the Dead. And there was a lot of amazing craftsmanship that went into making those movies, and I mean, I think they're all just phenomenal. They're gonna live on forever, I think.
Almost definitely. I enjoy them for different reasons, each one for different reasons, but I think a lot of it's just kind of connected to my childhood, and growing up, and so. But there wasn't really a whole lot of fight or backlash when they did remakes and stuff. Like, I remember when Zack Snyder did his own version of Dawn of the Dead. Well, there wasn't, to me, I didn't hear a whole lot of.
Well, I mean, I remember people were complaining about the fast-running zombies, but James Gunn wrote something to stand out. It was to stand out of the crowd because fast-running zombies weren't really a thing, and I want to say 28 Days Later came out after that, but those aren't zombies.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't consider that. Well,
in a sense,
they're not living dead. They're not zombies, but I think they wanted to come up with something that was different than zombies. Everybody kind of like there's a zombie movie to fit every kind of genre.
Well, I mean, the
background.
The white zombie isn't the zombie we know today. It's someone who's hypnotized.
Correct.
So I mean, there's different zombies for different times of the week.
And George Romero was the first one to do the flesh-eating zombie.
I guess so.
I couldn't find anything before all that.
Yeah, I mean, The Mummy's not a zombie, but could be a zombie.
Well, I guess so.
I mean, it's a carcass walking around. It's a reanimated carcass.
But that was, even if it was a curse or something, yeah.
But I mean, they bring in curses show up in all these other zombie movies, and the Dario Argento ones start going that direction.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Yeah.